I would say just in terms of leadership skill development that you get emotional intelligence, resilience, and crisis navigation and risk mitigation, all these really important leadership skills that people go get degrees for thousands of dollars. And here you just birthed a baby, you had a kid, and now you got these new skills that you've honed. And sure, it may take, a few months, a couple years to really hone those skills. And, I'm in the middle of toddler tantrum phase, so I'm really building these skills. But these are absolutely skills that directly translate to your leadership capabilities and your job function.
Welcome to Women and Work, the show where we take an inside look at how women are overcoming our own unique challenges as we grow our careers or build a business while nurturing relationships and family. I'm Diane Mocha, founder and CEO of MomSub, the childcare platform that gives employees access to backup caregivers and connects working parents to a trusted, reliable substitute mom. This show demonstrates how work can fit your life. Our guests show you the way they've done it. And today I'm with Alexa Starks, the founder of Executive Moms, which she started this year to get more women into executive roles. In addition, she's the head of enterprise transformations at Planwork Solutions, which she also co-founded this year, all while raising two kids. You are busy, Alexa. We really thank you for taking the time to join us on Women and Work.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And, I always think it's funny, there's never time to rest. And then I wonder why. And it's like, oh, I'm just doing a lot, I guess.
Yeah, and you say a lot of yeses, and sometimes you have to do that when you want to grow your business and you're passionate about what
Yes,
you believe. And I
yes,
understand you
exactly.
created two workshops that are really desperately needed to give
Hmm.
managers the strategies to support working parents and recognize their value, right? The reentry blueprint
Yep.
and the parent forward culture. And you develop them
Hmm.
based on your 10 years in corporate operations. So I
Hmm.
want to ask you during that
Yeah.
time, what do you think was the biggest challenge you faced in the workplace,
Mm.
specifically because you were a woman?
Oh, that's a good question. Specifically because I was a woman, I felt that I had to really prove myself as to why I deserved to be promoted or get a raise. It wasn't just I've been here for X number of years, or I've been like, I felt like I had to really, really prove it. And I had a lot of male colleagues who just seemed to get promoted more easily. And I feel like I had to like really show up with a whole PDF of bullet points of I've done XYZ and improved ROI this much. And just felt like I had to prove it more, which is very weird, but happens everywhere in corporate
Mhm.
America.
And did it work? Did your extra effort work, or were there some times where you were just like, that's the response, and then he got the position?
It did work for a while when I was young and eager and showed up to work first thing in the morning before everyone else and left late, and I'd be working on my phone at 6 a.m. when I was working out in the morning. And I went above and beyond when I was young and single and had all this energy.
You
and
leaned
and
in.
yeah, I leaned in, and then that kind of started to dip once I became a mom and needed to set more boundaries of, hey, this is dinner time with my kids. I can't be working during this time. And so for a while it worked, and then it didn't.
And then it didn't. So
Yeah.
did you leave? Were you in an environment and a culture that you felt was not conducive for you to have the kind of balance that you wanted in your life?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I worked remotely. So just to start off, I was very fortunate to work in a remote role that I could have my babies home with me for a while before we put them in daycare at one. But when I had both my kids, there was still no support when I came back from maternity leave. There was no re-onboarding plan. It was just expected to be at 100% on day two, and don't ask if you need help. We won't mention anything. And it was just very unsupportive. And so it was kind of a pushed out for lack of support, it was just the end, and I needed to build something better and help other moms. And I've always had this calling of wanting to help other people and other women and other moms. And this was just like it all came together. it wasn't fitting in the moment anymore, it wasn't the right environment, and I wanted to fix the situation. So
Mhm.
it kind of all came crashing to a head.
So let's address the myth that's out there among some people that somehow a working parent, especially a working mom, maybe doesn't have the same value to a company because she's not in there before everyone else and staying late and on her phone 24 hours. That FaceTime or that clocking in somehow is more valuable than someone who's
Mhm.
efficient and productive and knows how to multitask five things because now she's really learned as a parent. So tell me how your value may have actually increased to this company, yet maybe they didn't recognize that.
Yeah, this is really good. So the first I would say, just in terms of leadership skill development that you get emotional intelligence, resilience, and crisis navigation and risk mitigation, all these really important leadership skills that people go get degrees for thousands of dollars. And here you just birthed a baby, you had a kid, and now you got these new skills that you've honed. And sure, it may take, a few months, a couple years to really hone those skills. And I'm in the middle of toddler tantrum phase, so I'm really building these skills. But these are absolutely skills that directly translate to your leadership capabilities and your job function. And the second part of this that I teach in my workshops is track output and outcomes, not hours, because that's how you're going to mitigate a lot of that bias of FaceTime and being early in the office versus late, staying late if you can't, is being able to catch up asynchronously, use Monday.com or Asana or ClickUp, some sort of tool that you can easily track outcomes and output. So you, as a manager, can make sure, hey, this person's still performing just as well, even though they have to leave at 4:30 to pick up their kids. And so that's been one of the biggest implementation pieces from my workshops, is making sure that you're tracking outcomes, not hours.
So give me some examples that might not be as obvious because of course you can think about sales and well, if you're making so many calls and you're accomplishing them or you're making so many sales, that's an outcome. But what about
Mhm.
other jobs and other industries where it's harder to show those outcomes? Are you training the manager on how to evaluate the outcomes? Are you training the employee on how to track and present them? Are you doing both? And how does that fit into industries that we might not think of as typically being able to track outcomes?
It's a good question. And it's definitely, so a lot of the companies I've worked with are media, advertising, tech. And so a lot of the work is project based, and you can track tasks that you worked on. You can have a running to-do list where you show, like, I had a client call at X time, or I checked in and updated XYZ, for example. You can see on a like a Gantt chart or a different type of chart where you are in a project, see the timeline, if anything is falling, if anything's like backsliding and you need to catch up. So there's still ways to track it, even if it's not sales or revenue. Um, yes, each team will be a little bit different, but generally they know what they're looking for in terms of to measure the success. And it's just quantifying that and putting it into some asynchronous tool like Monday.com or Asana, which is really, really user friendly and easy nowadays to pick up. And they generally have a free version too.
And do you find that working moms are more productive because they know how to maximize, right, their time because
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden after you're a parent you suddenly realize all that time you didn't know you had. You're like, wow,
Yeah.
I wasn't as busy as I thought. So now you really learn to maximize every minute you can. And so have you seen or can you help others recognize that maybe working moms are more productive in 6 hours than other employees are in 9 hours? What have you seen? Do you have any metrics?
Yeah, absolutely. So employees can be equally as productive. And I will say, when we saw this happen in COVID, right? When everything shut down and everything had to go remote overnight, basically, the world didn't stop spinning. Companies still kept functioning. People were still able to do their jobs just as well, if not more productively. And now the return to work, return to office mandates have been really fighting with that. But we did see that people were able to be just as productive. And I would say when you track outcomes, not hours, you don't tie people into having to work a solid 8 hours, 9 to 5 in front of your desk. There's plenty of days where you can get your job done in 6.5 hours or 7 hours. And then there's other days where you may have to work late. And part of the benefit of a salaried job is you're not necessarily tied to those specific hours. You can maybe have a little bit of flexibility of, I got my work done for the day. Maybe it took 6.5 hours. Maybe tomorrow I have to work 9 hours and, prep for a presentation, but there's give and take. And generally when you're tracking by outcomes and output, you can see if something's not adding up, and you can see when someone's not being as productive because you're tracking towards those goals.
Mhm. And it makes a difference? Does it make a difference with the employees, with their feelings, so they're not suffering like that guilt like you were? Does it make a
Mm-hmm.
difference with managers? Does it even make a difference with promotions?
It absolutely does, because it takes away a lot of that bias. So it takes away managers unintentionally or sometimes intentionally, but they'll have that bias of, hey, I see so and so working in the office, or I see so and so's face more often. And so they start to associate more work to them, or they're doing better and more promotions. So when you start tracking towards those outcomes and goals, you just take away a lot of that bias, and that's really helps with promotions.
Nice. And so when you were in the corporate environment, you found out you were pregnant, you're thinking about, okay, how is this all going to work? What were the things that you considered? Did you ever consider maybe I'm going to step away for a while? Maybe I'm going to go part-time, where you're like, no way, I've worked so hard to get here. I just know I've got it all figured out. They're going to go in daycare and that's it. Or what were some of your thought processes? What were some of the things that you considered and maybe even attempted, and how did it work out?
Yeah, so like I said, I was very fortunate to work remotely. And so I knew I didn't want my baby to go into daycare as early as other people have to put theirs in daycare. I wanted to wait until they were closer to walking or closer to one. And so my husband, he also worked remotely. And so we kind of talked about, okay, as the baby grows up, I was going to breastfeed for a little while, and then we'll take turns watching him when he's awake and take shifts. And, babies are fairly potato sacks sometimes. They just kind of lay there around. So it's fairly easy to take a meeting, and my baby's over there. And I was fortunate to have a great team who I loved, and they were all very welcoming of having my baby join the Zoom calls sometimes. So I didn't want to step away from work. I didn't want to drop down to part-time. I've always been very ambitious and very driven. I actually didn't even want to start a business, and I wanted to work my way up the corporate ladder, and it just didn't end up working out that way. But I always was very ambitious. And so for me, it was kind of like, okay, how can I make this work?
Hmm.
And I did for a while.
Hmm. And I bet you were kind of called to it like I was, because I never intended to be an entrepreneur. I had a career for 15 years in television as a reporter and loved it. But I wanted to do something that had even more impact than telling
Hmm.
stories. And you wanted to do something
Yep,
that had even more impact than maybe getting that C-suite role and helping a few other women. Now you can help dozens, hundreds, thousands, right?
absolutely.
And so
Yeah.
when you decided to make this change, I mean, how did you go about that process? I mean, did you just one day say, this isn't sustainable, I'm going to quit and I'm going to start a business? Or did you start thinking about maybe I should do this? Was it really hard, or was it just cut and dry and you knew?
Oh, it's a good question. I think it really, I sat on it for a long time. And, my husband's my best friend. We bounce ideas off each other all the time. And so I really sat with it. And I think something part of that and I tell this to a lot of other women who are looking to start a business, is what's the hill that you're willing to die on? And that really helped me narrow down my focus to what I want to do, because in the beginning, I had a billion ideas of what I wanted to do to help. And so as a business owner, this, you have to like really focus in on, no, I can only do one thing. What is it that I'm going to do, at least in the beginning? And so that really helped. And yeah, I worked on building it up until it was the right time to leave my job. And that way I had a little bit of runway, had some savings, had some, self funding money to kind of build this up. And so I it was a lot easier than just like quit and then try to figure something out. But it took a lot of thinking to figure out what is the hill that I will die on.
Did you go back to that company and say, so you don't lose people like me? Let's fix your culture so when someone comes back from maternity leave, they're not just dropped in, without any support. Or did you say, maybe that's too close to home?
It's a little too close to home. I do feel like there's a little conflict of interest, but I mean, by all means, if they ever see this and want to talk, I'm more than happy to.
So, how hard was it to go out there and find clients and convince them that this is important? And lots of companies will agree, oh, yeah, that's important. We want to support this, but where's my ROI? That's all
Hmm.
that matters really in the C-suite is what are the
Yeah.
numbers? What are you going to do for me, right? With them, what's in it for me? So, what do you
Yeah, yeah. So it's been, I think when you go from corporate America to business owner, there's a lot of things that have to shift. And one is learning to accept rejection and no's and putting yourself out there when you don't feel comfortable already, because you don't have to necessarily do that every day in the corporate world. And so that was new to me. And so it's kind of just like, okay, I got to get used to this. And I think when I'm talking with other HR leaders and doing the workshops, the ones who get it are also working moms. One of them is like, 6 months postpartum, she's back and she's like, oh, yeah, we totally need this. And so it's not as much of a hard sell as it is to some other HR or people managers who are just like, what's the metrics? Or they don't have any documented cases of harassment or workplace culture issues. And so those are a little harder sells. But the ones who get it are also parents. And that's been a much easier way to network and get in the door with them. And they relate, they understand.
hmm But it's hard in the beginning, no matter how committed
Yeah.
you are to your business, to start from zero and create something and create revenue, right? And have actual income. So
Hmm.
your child, you have two.
I have two.
Are
Yeah.
they
Two and a
twins?
half and 1.5.
Two and a half and one and a half. Oh my gosh, close together. So
Yeah.
so they're in daycare while you
Hmm.
were working, and
Hmm.
then you made this shift. So did you think like, can we afford to keep paying for daycare if I don't have revenue coming into this business? And so tell me about your childcare, why you decided to go with daycare versus maybe
Hmm.
having a nanny at home since you were working at home. What were some of the challenges that came with childcare? Did you spend a lot of time or did you like, oh, I know the daycare down the street. All my friends' kids go there. That's just a no-brainer. Was it easy or was it challenging?
Yeah, so we did a nanny for a little bit, for a few
Okay.
months while at home. And that worked out because we had an upstairs and a downstairs. I could work downstairs. Our kids could be upstairs and play. And that worked well for a while. I could hear if anything went wrong, if something was going on, like, oh, I could help get snacks ready. But at some point, they get closer to one, and the social interaction is really important. And we really wanted our kids to be in daycare and be exposed to germs and
I was just
colds
gonna
and
say that.
and build all of that,
Which
immune
go to
system.
you. You just said earlier that you got something
Exactly.
from them.
Yes, I'm fighting a brutal daycare cold, which is the worst. But yes, daycare it was very important for us that they get the social skills and the interactivity that comes with other kids, and we saw them blossom as soon as they went into daycare, which was really great. And we had a great nanny, but there's just something different about being in a room with 10 other kids your age and learning to pick up new skills versus at home playing with the same toys every day. So it worked well to have a nanny for a while, and then it worked well being in daycare.
hmm And then you decided to keep it at the same level even when your income shifted and you didn't have that
Mm,
steady paycheck.
no, so they're actually home with us on Wednesdays. So they do daycare Monday, Tuesdays, and then they're home with us Wednesdays, and then Thursday, Friday they're back. And it's given us a good extra day to be parents with them and have that meaningful presence. And we really found that we like it. It is hard to kind of navigate working sometimes on those days, and we I adjust my schedule and try not to schedule anything Wednesdays. Now that I'm a business owner, I have a lot more flexibility over my schedule. But and my husband, he'll kind of we'll tag team. I'll take the kids in the afternoons and stuff. But it's been helpful to have an extra day with them and just play. hang out, go to the park 12 times.
Nice. And you write a lot about the challenges of working moms, especially on LinkedIn. And one of the complaints that we hear, and it's true, is that the mom ends up being the default parent. And now
Hmm.
that your husband is in a role with a company and you are the business owner with the flexibility, I would think that that's going to fall to you even more. So,
Hmm.
have you had that happen? Has it affected your business or your relationship or just your frustration day to day, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I think I've always been the one who's I've always been the default one. I'm always the one scheduling the pediatrician
We usually
appointments.
are, right? Working
Yeah,
moms, we usually are. And we usually want to. It's
exactly.
like, you don't do that right. What? You didn't take any notes at the doctor's office? I have like 3 pages from the last
I
appointment.
know. I let him buy one pair of shoes for our son a couple months ago, and he bought them like three sizes too big. I was like, I even sent you like the exact size you should get. It's so funny. But yeah, no, I like kind of being, maybe it's a little bit controlling of me, a little type A, but it's it's always kind of been me. And I am the one who gets the daycare phone calls. Hey, your kid's got a fever, come pick them up. And because I have the flexibility, I can drop what I'm doing and go pick them up. And so it's definitely, now that I'm a business owner, I have a lot more flexibility. I don't feel bad if I'm like, sorry, gotta go, kid's more important, because I can do it.
And you do some coaching too. So, what do you tell those working moms that you coach? I know you're mostly coaching them to improve their workplace identity and be on a track to move into positions that they want. But if they're parents, you're coaching them how to juggle and manage all that, and it's
Hmm.
just so tough. It always has been, and I think it gets harder as time goes on, not easier because there's so much more coming at us every day. And so, what
Yeah.
are you telling the parents? What can you tell our listeners and viewers about, how to deal with it when things just seem like it's too much?
Yeah, absolutely. So I coach working moms on that transition back to work after maternity leave. And so generally, you have a new baby and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. You have, your baby comes down with their first cold. It's usually really rough and teething and all these things. So what I tell them specifically, like let's say they get that daycare phone call and so they need to run and go pick up their kids, is let your boss know, hey, my kid's sick. I have to go pick them up. I can work remotely from home. I can pick up anything for work after I put them to sleep at the end of the night, make sure all my projects are done, everything's updated. This again comes back to why it's so important to have these asynchronous tools so you can show I did get my work done for the day. I had to leave early to pick up my kid, but I was able to get all my work done still. And so I always give all my working moms these scripts of what they can say in those situations, or if they're setting boundaries of, hey, I'm picking up my kid at 5 from daycare, so I can't do any last minute meetings or Slack messages from 5 till 7 till after the kids go down. If there's an emergency, after that, I can pick something up. And so a lot of it's giving them the tools that they need to better advocate for themselves. And it's been really helpful.
Nice. And how do you think it can empower working parents and even help the workplace environment and the employer if parents know they have something like Mom Sub that can provide them backup care where they don't have to figure it out? They're just like, I need it. And then we're there from that for them. Is that something that can make a difference in the mental health even of these working parents?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I read MIT Sloan put out a report that 70% almost of working moms are stressed and burnt out because of the inconsistencies between work and daycare and childcare coverage. And so when you have something like Mom Sub, it can take a ton of that stress off because kids are going to go through a million different things in life, from daycare sicknesses to school closures because of a snow day or whatever. And you don't have parents nearby to help out. So you have to find childcare at the last minute so that you can still work. You only have a limited number of sick days that you could take off for your kids, for example. So something like what you do with Mom Sub can take a ton of that stress off of moms and parents who need quickly some sort of backup care so that they can still work. So I love what you're doing. It is something I think every mom should have in their toolkit.
Hmm. Thank you. And, we also, of course, help them with the search for weekly care. And I wonder what you did to find your nanny. How many different avenues did you go down? Was it an easy process or did it take a little while?
Yeah, I used care.com
Hmm.
and the app, and I interviewed maybe like a handful, maybe like four or five different nannies before we picked the one that we like. And then I think we tried out one for a week and then didn't really like her and then switched to another one. But it was definitely a trial and error. And then we found the one we liked and stuck with her. So it was pretty easy with an app nowadays.
So you had to invest some time though, because you had to
Yeah.
do the interviews, you had to do the
Yes.
trial, you had to try it out, find out that one wasn't right, then go back and
hmm
try others, kind of negotiate the rate, all that kind of stuff with them.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it was nice to find a list, but you had to handle some of that on your own. And
Yep.
do you think for busy parents who are, looking for somewhere that they can delegate to, that is valuable for some of the parents that you talk to not even have to deal with it, to just watch a video interview with someone who's already been pre-screened and fits all their criteria?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I spent so much time scrolling through profiles, reading their little blurb and seeing if they have pictures or reviews. And it definitely took a lot of time. If I could just outsource that and say, like, here's my criteria, find your best people, and then like watch a video interview and say, like, that one right there, she's great. It definitely would save a lot of time.
Hmm. And then when once you found that one after that first one didn't work out, the second one that you found did work out for you in the long run. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, she did. She was great.
And have you been able to use her for date nights or anything like that so you can take a break now and then besides just a break to work?
Yeah, we've taken a couple date nights, and it's been helpful,
Yeah,
especially with two young kids. You really need that. So definitely being able to reuse a babysitter or nanny is helpful.
nice. And so, one final question. You have all this knowledge now that you didn't have years ago when you were in the workplace or before you had kids. And if you could go back to some earlier version of you, knowing then what you know now, what would you change?
Hmm. I mean, this gets into like the butterfly effect, right? Like, what would I change? Would it change what I have now? I don't
Well,
know. I
if it
love.
wouldn't, let's just say, you just can have a magic wand and change something, and everything else would be, you'd have your beautiful children and your great life.
I think I would have given myself what I give moms now. The words to advocate for yourself. I had no support. My parents didn't live nearby. We were the first in our friend group to have kids, so I didn't have like a community or support group. And so I felt really alone. And when I was really struggling and my managers never said anything, it was really hard. So I'd go back and literally give myself the words to say, "Hey, I'm struggling. I need help. Can we talk about lowering my workload, or can I push some things to next month because I'm just struggling right now?" And I had postpartum anxiety, and so I would just give myself the tools to verbalize what I need to advocate for myself. So that's
And the
why it's
courage to
important.
ask, right? Sometimes
Yeah,
women just don't ask and they think, well, I'm strong because I'm not asking. You're actually stronger when you do ask, when you have that
absolutely.
vulnerability, right? Like Brene Brown talks
Yep.
about. Yes.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for all that you've shared, Alexa, on today's
Oh,
episode of Women in Work. And if you were inspired by today's story, remember to share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe so you can meet our next amazing guest. If you want to invest in a solution to the childcare crisis, check out MomSub's equity crowdfunding campaign at momsub.com/invest or connect with MomSub on social media like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and others. That's MomSub like a substitute mom. And remember, your career, your choices, and your success are yours to define. So keep pushing boundaries and spreading your love and encouragement to other women who need it.